I want to salute my caucus for the commitment to values that they demonstrated in accepting the president's budget.
This week, we are breaking down the face-off between House Democratic moderates and Nancy Pelosi.
After years and years of infrastructure week, we're on the cusp of an infrastructure decade.
Since the beginning of the negotiations over Biden's infrastructure bill and his larger jobs bill, there has been a confrontation between those on the left in the Democratic Party in Congress and those at the center. The centrists have been pushing for $1 trillion bipartisan infrastructure bill, and the progressives have been very down on that piece of legislation because it doesn't include a lot of their priorities.
I can't vote for some small subset that, the infrastructure train leaves the station and childcare gets left on the platform. Green energy gets left on the platform.
A truce was formed when Biden, Pelosi, and Schumer all agreed these two pieces of legislation essentially would be tied together. Neither one gets sent to the White House without the other.
They may be voted separately, but it is one infrastructure deal.
Pelosi only has a 3-seat margin, so any group of members of her caucus can band together and threaten to bring down a piece of legislation or vote if they stick together. Along comes a guy named Josh Gottheimer, a centrist Democrat from northern New Jersey, and he bands together with 8 other Democrats, and they write a letter to Pelosi saying, "We don't like that deal, and we will not vote for the Biden budget unless we get a clean vote on the infrastructure bill and it gets sent to the president." Fast forward to this week, Nancy Pelosi realized they were not going to back down, and she had to offer them a deal.
It was a team effort for us to win the vote.
The deal that Gottheimer and Nancy Pelosi cut promises that there will indeed be a vote on the infrastructure bill by September 27th. Why is that important? Well, the reconciliation bill, the larger bill with all of those other Democratic priorities, is not likely to be completed by September 27th, although it's possible. Gottheimer and company may, in the end, get what they want, which is that infrastructure vote before the reconciliation vote. And there'll be a little bit of a race now to finish the larger bill by that deadline so that the original plan of keeping them together, moving through the system together, can still work. The second thing that has not gotten as much coverage, but maybe just as important, is that Nancy Pelosi promised this group of moderates that any reconciliation bill that was voted on in the House would have to be tailored to pass the Senate. Anything that the House passes essentially has to meet the requirements of the 50 Democrats in the Senate, which means people like Joe Manchin and Kirsten Sinema now essentially have veto power over what the House passes. Progressives have already said that they don't care what Gottheimer and Pelosi negotiated. They are still sticking to the original plan. They will not support the infrastructure bill unless it is tied to the larger reconciliation bill. If they stick to their guns on that, and the infrastructure bill is put on the floor of the House before the larger reconciliation bill is finished, that means that the Democrats will have to rely on some Republican votes to pass their infrastructure bill, or it will fail. There are a couple of dozen, at least, House Republicans who have previously said that they endorse the infrastructure bill. We haven't seen the last act here. The one way to think about this battle is moderates and progressives essentially are trying to reduce the leverage of each side in these negotiations. How does each side maximize leverage during the final negotiations that are coming up here in September and will probably spill into October? One final point about all this is the date by which this has all been kicked to, late September. That is going to be a very, very busy period in Congress because a few things are happening. One, Congress has to raise the debt limit around that time. Two, The government funding runs out at the end of September, and they'll have to pass some kind of legislation to keep government funded and going. The reconciliation bill, there'll be a sort of sprint to finish that. And now on top of all of that, in late September, they have added this infrastructure bill. The last week of September is going to be chaotic with a lot of deadlines and a lot of pieces of the Biden agenda all crashing together in one short period.